If they actually get the $10, suddenly they are top analysts. They can get much better jobs, better bonuses. But a lot of people are risk averse. A lot of equity analysts are people who actually want to be traders, but, floor traders. But being a floor trader is very different. It's a different skill set. Obviously, you need some sort of intelligence, but you also need psychological balance. You know, when you take a $1 billion position in a stock, following that going down is not that easy, even when it's not your own money. So these people may say, okay, I know a lot about stocks, but I don't want to be a trader. I can't handle it psychologically. So I'm going to give advice. And that means these people are, by their nature, on average, more risk averse. They are more prone to disappointment aversion. They don't want to disappoint people. And stock traders, or in general traders, they are more risk lovers. Because, what if you're not that successful? Well, market went down, so I didn't do that well. That's why there is a lot more hoarding in equity analysis. Now, given all of this, I kind of want to look at certain summary measures where market is thinking. We talked a little bit about the FRED database last time. FRED is short for Federal Reserve Economic Database. It's maintained by Fed St. Louis. There is all sorts of data, but there are certain market indications. Example, what is the topic du jour these days? All these tariffs and all that sort of other stuff. Politically, you may think whatever you think about it, but economists have finished the discussion about whether or not tariffs can be job creating or useful, probably around 1940s. In general, tariffs are taxes. Okay? And those taxes are eventually borne by the consumers. So, yes, it will generate tax income for the US Treasury. But who's going to pay those taxes? Do you think Canadians are going to pay the taxes? No. If you put 50% tariffs on steel, they're going to increase their prices by 50%. Who's going to pay those extra steel prices? Detroit. Okay. That means cost of the cars are going to go up. That means demand for cars is going to go down. So recession. I'm not even talking about the inflationary issues. And those guys are going to charge you retaliatory tariffs. So what's the first thing they do? They're not dumb people. Uh, all the tariffs that Canadians are doing, and even the Europeans, are geared towards products of the Republican voting states. There's going to be a lot of taxes on bourbon, tariffs. Of course, yeah. There's going to be a lot of taxes on orange juice. Why Florida? And a lot of agricultural products or beef, this and that. Do you really think that Trump people will be able to handle that kind of political pressure, economic pressure? We don't know. These create uncertainties. Let's see how we can see how market perceives this increased uncertainty. One of the first things I'm going to look at how highly rated bonds have increased their spreads. For example, let's look at investment grade bonds in general. That's triple A. Let's just do triple B. All right. Now, first, let me explain what that means. This is based on kind of an index. There are thousands of corporate bonds out there that are triple B rated. Triple B is the lowest rating you can get, but still considered investment grade. For example, mutual funds can invest in them. Pension funds can only invest if they're double A's. An investment grade bond is not considered to have, at least in the short term, any default risk or any disruption to payments of interest rates or not. So they're safe instruments. But even with that, currently, let me just look at since pretty much election. All right. I mean, right after the election, these spreads were 99 basis points. That means an average or a representative firm that has a triple B rating paid only 1% above corresponding treasuries. So if a 5-year treasury is yielding 4%, you issued a 5-year bond, it costs you 5%. That's normal because you're more likely to, you're riskier than the treasury. Right before, right after election, 97 basis points. That number right now, in fact, this is as of this morning, 116 basis points. Now let's think about what that means. That is an increase of about 20 basis points. 20 basis points is 1/5%. There's probably at least $1 trillion worth of investment grade bonds out there. Multiply that $1 trillion. A trillion is 1 million million, right? The cost of that is $2 billion a year just for those companies. Now, I'm a firm. A lot of times I'm going to invest, right? Well, I'm going to look at the cost of my investment. In fact, we don't even know how high this is going to go yet. And if uncertainty about cost of my investment increases or overall cost of my investment increases, I'm going to invest less. When I invest less, what's going to happen to the employment? Remember, corporations, when they want to cut down stuff, they're going to cut down the workforce first because that they can do quickly. You cannot close the factory that easily, but you can fire people or furlough people, what have you. Most of the growth of the economy actually comes from even riskier firms, startups, mediums, and stuff. So let's look at the what happened to single B. This is the lowest grading you can get, but still considered a junk bond. Just let's look at it since pretty much the election. Right after the election, this was about 250 basis points, which is normal. These are for the risky companies. In fact, let's see, uh, expected default rate of single B bonds. Currently, it's about 10%, a 3-year cumulative default rate of 21%. So if you buy a single B bond, you could expect a default rate of about 21%. That doesn't mean you're going to lose 20% of your investment, because a lot of times, even though they default, you can recover some stuff. So it's not that risky. It is risky, but not that risky. So that 2.5% is basically compensation for that extra default risk. All that number just less than 2 months ago was about the same. Just over the last week or last month, it jumped by 65 basis points. Now I'm a small firm, and the only way I can survive is to come up with profitable investment opportunities and get funding for them. Even in the bond market says, yeah, I'll give you that funding, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. In fact, banks are going to be even less likely to fund these guys. When there is credit crunch, banks typically stop funding small businesses. And throughout the world, not just US, small and medium businesses are always the biggest engines of growth. So if you keep increasing uncertainty, banks are going to be in protection mode.